Finally, we are coming to the last session of the evening, and it's the toughest of the session because it's going to be talking about the currency or the measurement exercise. It's not an easy topic because this is a debate that's been raging over across the globe in various countries. How do we make a digital platform so accountable to a measurement exercise? And I must say, in India, there's been a lot of trials that have happened, a push that's been given to that front. It's just the fact that it's not taken off that efficiently as one could like to have had. But we'll discuss that in the coming next few minutes. And to that, I have the three esteemed panelists on this dais. Let's start by asking, fundamentally, reversing the question about whether we really require a measurement, not just for digital, but as a cross-media measurement currency in place in nature. I'll give it to Romil first, since he heads BARC, and they have tried their best to launch ACOM, which was a digital currency for the Indian market.
Yeah, so thanks, Alvi, for posing this. So as you all know, BARC right now does TV measurement in the country, and we were on the journey of launching ACOM, which was measurement of the video ecosystem space, and we started that journey roughly 2 years back, right? I think, and since BARC is a body of all advertisers, broadcasters, which also are digital publishers and agencies, and hence we started on that journey. I think there were exciting learnings. Technologically, I think we were fully ready. It's about getting alignment of all stakeholders. I think all of them, is there a need for a common measurement currency? Whatever I keep on hearing is, yes, there is a need for a lot of common measurement currency. Is there a consensus around the table in the way it should be and how it should be, which is where it is lacking? And this common measurement currency, as we all know, right, across the world, I don't think right now there is any single country where, unfortunately, it exists. It exists in pieces everywhere. Somebody, somebody does web measurement, somebody does app measurement, somebody does web plus app, somebody does content, somebody does ad measurement. So it happens in fractured manner across the world in those particular media types. But be it TV, be it print, and in some cases, be it radio, I think there is a syndicated common currency which exists pretty much across the board. But as far as this new digital animal is concerned, I think there is a lot of consensus that still needs to be brought to the table.
Romil, do you think so, the fact that, when television measurements started, there was actually no data available at all on television viewing habits? Okay, radio or print, such traditional medias, again, didn't have any particular data. So everything was new per se, and therefore acceptance of a currency was pretty fast in nature. But is this because that in digital, there is so much of data being supplied by the owners itself or the platform owners itself, and that is triggering off saying the fact that, do I really need to therefore expose myself to an outside world and bring in a commonality in the currency exercise?
So that's what we keep on hearing. I think we heard the other panelists as well, right? In terms of there is a lot of resistance to share their data, and there is a lot of resistance. They feel that data is the own property, unless and until. So I can perfectly, I can perfectly align to that thought. If it's a subscription platform, no need for advertising. But as long as if it's an advertising platform, and if the advertisers rightfully so will need to know the right for the buck, I think there needs to be a common measurement. I can easily say that I'm 8 feet tall, but I think it needs to be verified. It needs to be the same yardstick to measure everything, rather than everyone actually just somebody boasting the the download number, somebody boasting another matrix. If it's a 2-second ad, they will call it a fully played ad. Somebody says 6 seconds, somebody says, so everyone uses different yardstick. I think it's fair for the person who is spending to know what the ROI has been.
India is not the only country where we are facing this difficulty. Recently in Australia, there was PwC launching a single book which could have combined all data from Nielsen, from Facebook, and from others, iSTREAM, the official broadcast measurement agency in Australia. And it was being supported by Facebook. But somewhere in between, the entire thing ran into a logjam. And finally, the report came out without any information from Nielsen, YouTube backing out from it completely, a bit of Facebook data, and Roy Morgan doing the entire exercise once again on video viewership numbers. So ultimately, the Association of Advertisers in Australia accepted the report by stating the fact that we have still not reached an ideal situation in the world where we can still have one single data coming out from one single source as a currency for the marketplace. So eventually, I think we will get there. I think BARC's trial is an attempt in that direction. And sooner or later, when the realization happens, the fact that the need is pretty high, or else advertising revenue will not get any yields, at that time, probably they will all stand up and put their hands up for a sharing of data and probably going in for an industry currency. But let's check with Jose, who has had experience across the globe where they provide LaLiga content to various platforms, not just broadcast platforms on television, but also to even Facebook. And they get data from multiple sources. So how do they use that data? Are they finding it reliable enough for their conversion into monetization of their content? So Jose, what do you say about that?
Data is basic for any kind of organization who is in the market. And yes, we are a league, we sell emotions, we sell big football figures, big stars, but at the end, we are in the marketplace. So data is absolutely fundamental for us. Let's not forget that data has two uses. One for analysis, but also is an important tool of communication, no? I mean, if you take India, when the last IPL finished, Star came with these, and the covers of all newspapers say, I don't remember how many million watched IPL. That was an increase of whatever from last year, and the increase in digital Hotstar was whatever. So it's a communication tool as well. But internally, we do need to know the maximum data possible to know if what we do works, as simple as that. Answering your question, well, we are in a transition from a pure television time, let's call it that way, that it was traditionally, thoroughly, and well measured by organizations as BARC in India or Nielsen in many other countries. Now we are in a moment transitioning with the new digital agents that's not that easily analyzed. Well, it is easily analyzed, but simply those numbers are not coming out. And if you talk LaLiga in India, we are in the final stage. So from this year, all our matches, or our 380 matches of the season, will come out to the Indian market, I mean the Indian subcontinent market, exclusively through Facebook. I mean, most likely, non-data of that will be published. But we don't know all the data. No? When we deal with broadcasters, and this you had to compare with Netflix or Amazon Prime, is not Facebook content. It's LaLiga content acquired by Facebook. So when we sign these agreements with Facebook or all other OTT operators in other countries, we demand that we need the information. Of course, we'll care the information in total agreement with our taker. And in the case of, you know that these digital operators, they are quite shy when it comes to publish information, but that's fine. But we need that information first, as I said, for knowing if what we do works, but also for us it's a powerful commercial tool. No, when I go to try to find a global sponsor, which by the way we just signed our first Indian global sponsor, is BKT Tires. We had to show them why they should trust us, and one of the reasons for trusting us is the global audience we have. In digital, that we all know that, but also in the broadcast of our matches that now are analogic plus digital. So it's we need that information, and we're trying to get it well. If we publish it or not is a totally different matter.
So now if you have a Facebook coming to you and saying you the fact that I have X number of viewing numbers for LaLiga, do you accept it as on the face itself? Or do you say the fact that, oh, listen, I need to probe this. Can I have an independent auditor auditing that particular number and then certifying the fact that it is actually that X number that Facebook is actually saying?
Well, we do see the same, in what comes to our matches, we see the same numbers as Facebook sees, so we don't need to go to them. I mean, another thing is, as I said, communication policy, that we are going really hand in hand. And also, let's not forget, the variables that new digital operation, especially ones like Facebook use for their success, are radically different to the measures that your average broadcaster uses. Yes, reach is relevant, but these new operators, they give even more relevance to interaction with the fans. So all reactions that they are measured, it's a quite relevant data that they are not that shy to publishing that.
Let me put it this way, actually, Jose, that if suppose the data is coming to you from Facebook, vis-a-vis the data is coming to you from BARC, okay? Will producing the BARC data to a global sponsor be able to earn you a 10% more premium on your broadcast rights, sponsorship rights?
Well, I think that's the challenge the market is facing, and especially organizations like BARC or Nielsen. So it's not a problem of India. It's a global problem. I mean, basically, your BARC measures are a standard. And we are standard, neutral. With all the problems, we all know that you are relying to a sample, a limited sample of a panel model with these devices in the houses. We all know that, but it was unique and it was the same for everyone. And I think that's the challenge we are facing, to find a neutral measuring way that a neutral organization can say the total audience is whatever. And it simply, I think it's not there. I don't know if we are getting any closer, but it is the next step. Because if you have to rely on what operators want to release, then you have a problem, because you know information is power. So the way you publish or what you publish, you can do it in an interest way for defending your position, no?
Coming to Alok, who heads Hoichoi, it's a small platform, a SVOD platform. So therefore, he may not necessarily be wanting a kind of a data from the marketplace. But do you have any reservations if somebody turns around and says the fact that, listen, Hoichoi, can you share the data in public for us? Not because of the fact that you may much gain from it, from an advertising perspective, because you don't take advertising, but it could help others to understand what kind of content is getting watched on different platforms, and for which they're ready to pay you a particular fee for that particular data.
Well, this is a bit tricky, right? So, see, the data is here, right? We have the data, right? But what's happening right now is, there's being, like consumed, entirely in-house to make some, internal decisions and all, right? Whether it's, take decisions like user experience or, or giving a feedback to the content production team and all, that how the next, series or the next content should be, right? So that layer already exists, right? Now the question is whether we are going to, expose that to a third-party organization or a governing body or to the market, right? So that's
what is it that frightens you from not exposing it?
Well, I would say, very honestly, it was not, till now, it was not thought of, right? Because we are completely SVOD, so probably we don't have that, pressure from the advertisers, or we don't need to prove anything externally, right? It's entirely, internal, right? But yeah, now the syndications are happening. Like we also do syndications and everything, right? So which involves multiple parties with the same content, floating around throughout different applications and platform. The reach is increasing and all. Yeah, from that scenario, I think it's this industry call, right? If the industry thinks that there is a valid reason where there should be a like a very transparent kind of a feedback on how the contents are happening, like how they're performing everywhere, because now you see there are a lot of cross-device things are happening, right? So that is one of the important part which is missing in the current scenario. Like we don't get much data from the cross-device kind of a thing. Yeah, I mean, if you ask me, the pretty straightforward reply is we don't feel comfortable to disclose the data unless there's a very need which actually have an impact on our business, probably.
Romil, in case we want to bypass the OTT platforms by itself, I'm talking about only the OTT platforms presently. Do you think going to a telco and aligning with a few telcos, there are only a few players only actually, could be a much more better sense than trying to get a 35 odd OTT players to come together to say, okay, give the data and we'll work it out together?
Yeah, so that's also another area which a couple of countries have explored and have gone down that path as well, right? France, like for an example, had a tie-up with telcos initially when it started. It still exists, but ultimately, just as it became more and more closed as far as OTT players are concerned, that ecosystem also became difficult to see the granularity which is needed from a data standpoint. So while it can be a good starting point, but I think ultimately some sort of buy-in and some sort of indulgence will be required from the publishers as well. Otherwise, and the necessary push from the advertisers. Otherwise, it's unless and until it's a joint thing, it's not going to happen. Just to bypass it and do in a half-hearted way, I think might not be a long-lasting solution. It might just be a good stepping stone. But yeah.
I think in UK, I was just reading recently saying that there's a new initiative that's coming. Just like BARC, they have a body called BARB actually, B-A-R-B, British Audience Research Bureau, and they have started installing something called as a focal meter in the panel homes of television. So basically, it's exactly what BARC was trying to do, where they actually keep the meter in the panel home. It connects to the router of the broadband that is in the home, and picks up video viewing across all the devices, which is connected TV, laptop, mobile, and desktops. So what they are envisaging is the fact that they could combine the 20% of loss of viewership that's actually happening on television to other devices, also getting added on to it so that you get a combined total viewing of video content in nature. So eventually, I think as players realize the value of this importance of this data, probably it will move in that particular direction. But coming back to the, stepping aside from the measurement part of it, coming to the metric of measurement, because that's again another point of contention that actually happens between different platforms, TV vis-a-vis digital. Romil, if you had been going ahead with an ACOM kind of a situation with measurement happening in, what kind of metrics do you think you could have brought in place that could enable users to look at combination of media and try to ascertain their delivery levels?
So obviously it would again, so I don't know how many people have seen, actually MRC released a standard yesterday or day before yesterday. MRC is a body in US, and they have been working on this common standard for last almost 1.5 to 2 years. Almost 175 companies participated across the globe to build that standard. I think they have just come out with a standard which they think will get adopted by many countries 2020 onwards, which actually lays out how earlier people used to consider, even if the ad appears for 50% of the screen size, it will be counted as full. How even if it plays out 2 seconds or more, it will be counted as full exposure. So they have come out with very clear guidelines so that it can considered, what will consider in the digital ecosystem and how it can become a common metric. So I think a lot of people will gravitate towards that with some customizations in the respective countries. And I think that's the way to go. I think there will be some customizations which each country will evolve and do on top of the MRC standards, but I think a lot of them will gravitate towards that because be it all the top advertisers, top agencies, or top publishers in the country, unfortunately, more and more are becoming global, and hence it will be more gravitating towards one common thing.
In fact, the lady from Twitter is not here, Kanika, but Twitter has just announced 2 days back about using this particular methodology of delivering the objectives for advertisers, where they mentioned saying the fact that minimum 6 seconds and above the fold exposure on the screen for 50% above the fold on the screen will actually be counted as a viewing. If not, they'll be discounted from the viewing itself. But Jose, coming to this particular point about the metric, what does LaLiga use to define the popularity of the games on the digital platforms? What metric do you use? Is it just the sheer reach number that the platform delivers, or do you also go to the viewability in terms of, or look at the time spent that they have on the platforms?
Basically what we are looking is we need to be coherent all over the world. So if when we say that, I don't know, 150 million watch El Clásico, it has to be some coherence. So at the end, we need to go to the basics of sheer audience. That's it. Of course, each time more we are using other kind of measurements for knowing what works well and what doesn't work. And for this, social media helps a lot. If you have a content, like a match, that both matches having the same audience, let's say 100,000, but one has a huge level of interaction with the fans, and the other doesn't, that there is a difference. There's a qualitative value that, not just qualitative, I mean, a clear numerical indication that what content appeals more to the fan than others. So this is the kind of new measurings that they are there. And also, we cannot forget that the way a sports audiovisual product is consumed has changed drastically in the last 10 years. No? 10 years ago, basically, we were selling live rights, delayed rights, and highlights. That was about it. Today, the level of consumption of little snippets, great plays, goals through social media is amazing. So when you need also to measure that, because that's an impact of your competition. So each day more is digital presence is the future.
Surrounding the sponsorship for LaLiga that you have got from India now, do you think gaming, and therefore besides measuring the content, the live content, measuring the gaming aspect of football, which is pretty popular, specifically around the FIFA, when the FIFA gets launched every 4 years, could have an impact on the total amount of numbers that you generate for the game from an advertiser's perspective?
Well, yes. Those are new ways of advertising. Not that new, but I think all the content managers, especially sports contents, are increasingly looking to fantasy leagues and fantasy tournaments, like you say, like the FIFA tournaments and that. That's new ways of getting closer to the fan. Now you find also kids that they are watching on YouTube FIFA matches instead of real LaLiga matches. No, so it's relevance, but probably we do not understand quite well yet how relevant this will be for the main product. Let's not forget that at the end, what we are selling to the world is 22 young guys running after a football in a piece of grass. That's the basic. I mean, our product is 100% analogic, or human, I should say. But the way we sell it takes many shapes, and digital shapes are really important. And especially for, I don't want to dodge your question, so when you are dealing a package with a sponsor that is giving you a lot of money because he trusts in your brand, you're trying also to give this brand the biggest presence available. So you're trying to depending on the investment, to work with them across the board. No, so you can have packages from pitch side presence. So we can offer to a top sponsor to be in the advertising on every match in the world by any broadcaster, and especially these new digital modes give you a lot of flexibility for working with the sponsors. I mean, if you take, for example, Facebook has a big advantage, which is you can geo-localize your contents. So I can work with, and we're working in that way, with a LaLiga sponsor only for India and giving him contents only for India. And also, if you take the LED in our matches, we use digital LEDs. So we split the signal, the advertising signal, in different regions. So it's like you are seeing now, this works for all Real Madrid, Barça, and Atletico away matches. So you are seeing, for example, Sevilla, Barcelona, and you are seeing a different advertising in Spain, in the billboards in Spain, than in Asia, than in the Americas, than the US. So we need to measure that too. So that's important, because at the end we need to prove the investor that, the sponsor, that their investment is right. So it's the ways, there's not a single answer. So there's many ways we can use to bring more value to the sponsor. From the very simple as bring a LaLiga legend to their headquarters and depart with the workers. So, which has also a reflection on digital. So everything adds up.
Okay, one last round of question on what could be the future scenario looking like for measurement. Do you think, Romil, that if you look at in future the advertisers' needs, and his focus being the fact that unlike in TV or print or radio, where I'm measuring the outcome from a reach or a frequency perspective, here I'm able to determine performances on digital, and specifically when it comes to e-com sites, actually. And no wonder with that kind of a performance-oriented metric, Amazon and Flipkart both are going gung-ho over carrying advertising by providing video content on their platforms. Now, given the fact that that the entire pushes from advertisers are going to look at outcome being transaction-led, do you think they require a currency that will only measure them exposure numbers? Rather, they could go and work with somebody like Amazon and Flipkart and see actual transactions and therefore financial numbers also coming to the bottom line. And that becomes a currency rather than actually exposure numbers.
See, I think both are important to my perspective. Whenever the loop gets closed on the online itself, I think performance becomes more relevant. And when the loop gets closed in the offline space, which is much larger across the world, I think exposure number also becomes relevant. So both has important roles to play in their own sphere. As far as we are concerned, obviously we will strive towards giving exposures to begin with, and I think we will take baby steps in that direction. We launched something called a Prima View panel in India, right, which is what a premium home is actually consuming. I think we are extending that to digital as well as what they are consuming across screens. So like that, we will extend it to other pieces as well in terms of building around that, and ultimately, hopefully, ACOM will come in some shape and form.
Alok, what do you think actually? As a SWOT company, do you think you want to look at transactions also being integrated into your platform? That means that you don't stand alone as a platform, but you combine with a e-tailer and combine the content with their content, and so that you get better revenues, and that becomes a measurement metric for your contents.
Yeah. So like one thing like we still want to is still trying to understand is the need, right, for a subscription platform, right? Because when you talk about, televisions, radio, and newspaper, right? So there's no, there's no data available, right, which can be consumed at any level. But right now, the kind of data that we generate and the kind of consumption that we do on that, which actually, part of our business process and all, right? So if we see that, that sharing the data has an impact on the, whether it's on the business or revenue or, adding some value, probably, there's a time when, we would be, really start thinking about that. But right now is too early to, decide. Yeah.
Thank you, gentlemen. Open to the floor if there are any questions. No questions. I guess everybody's tired and want to hit back.
If you want, I can come to you. You raise your hand. We can ask the question. Don't worry. The field is open. Our hostesses are having tea, so don't worry about that. I'm here, ladies and gentlemen.
Gosh, that was really strong.
All right. So were you scratching your hair or were you wanting to ask a question? Or you were just scratching your hair?
Romil, hi. So what is the problem with ACOM that OTT players, they don't want to share the data with you, or they just don't feel safe enough to share the data with BARC?
No, I think it's about everyone feels that data is the new oil, right? I think everyone wants to guard data, and also the push needs to be at both ends. I think it needs to be an agreement with the publishers and a push from advertisers for real need of this. I think once the push and pull happens, there will be friction at some time, and hopefully this will come into play. But yes, it's at both ends right now.